Well, welcome to the video. I decided to go out for a little evening ride and got all the way out here and my dirt bike broke down, which is not surprising because it's a Husqvarna, but we gotta move that out of the way, and I guess we have to walk all the way back now. I figured this would be a good time for a little story because I ride dirt bikes and mountain bikes and that kind of thing in real life, and I have been in situations like this before where you're out in the middle of nowhere and you're stranded and the sun's gone down and now you kind of got to survive your way through the night, or at least try to get back. The most recent experience that I had with that was the week that I started this YouTube channel, and so I thought now would be a good time to share that. So me and my wife decided to go for a river trip, and she's been down the river before, but I have not. I hadn't been on the water at all. I'd never been in a kayak. She thought I had, and I failed to tell her that I hadn't, and so I kind of thought this was a, beginner friendly thing, something that you could do your first time on a kayak or first time on the water. Turns out maybe I should have, maybe you should have done something a little easier first. But anyways, we went out, we got a trip with the tour company. They hauled us in a motorized boat all the way to the top of the river at sunrise and dropped us off, and then we had the day to paddle downstream until we get to some campsites and spend the night and then go home the next morning. And so the first part of the day, from sunrise until late afternoon, we paddled down, and I had a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, for my first time. I feel like I did, not that bad. And we got to the last beach and set up camp, and it was on a sand dune, and out of nowhere the wind just picked up like crazy, and it was a complete sandstorm. We were getting sand blasted. We couldn't hold down the tent no matter what we did. The tent was getting just, within a matter of 10 minutes, it had an inch of sand inside of it. It was really a bad situation, and I asked my wife, because she had been down that part of the river before, how long does it take to get back to the dock, and she said it usually takes us about 2 hours. And we had 3 hours until the sun went down, and so we were like, okay, let's go for it. Now, this was where we made probably not a good decision, because think about it. It's almost dark, we're getting onto the water, and extreme winds, extreme weather conditions. We didn't really piece that together at the moment, and we got on the river. We were, just paddling as quick as we could. And for the first mile, it wasn't that bad. We're like, alright, no big deal. And then we got around the corner, and the way that the canyon was angled, the gusts of wind just got crazy. And it was where the current of the river kind of met with still water, and the wind was blowing the still water the opposite way of the current. And so it made for some really gnarly, dangerous water. White caps, pretty big waves for kayaks. It was coming over the top of the kayaks and, kind of filling them full of water. And we were just doing everything we could not to flip over. And so we fought like crazy for 3 hours to get through that section. And it got to the point where the sun had gone down. We had 1.5 miles to go, which felt so close but so far away. And we looked ahead, and hey, the rain stopped. That's nice. We looked ahead, and the waters ahead looked just really dangerous. And we're like, we can't go through that while it's getting dark. And we're in a canyon. There's no beaches around. There was a little area of land under a mountain. And so we pulled over onto it, and it was, just covered in tall bushes, rocks, and cactus. We had to teamwork to get our kayaks off the water and over these bushes so they wouldn't float away during the night, and then kind of trample in a little path to get us away from the water. And we were like, crap, we got to try to spend the night here. And what you know, you're like, well, it's not that bad. You're at least off the water. Well, there was poisonous things everywhere. There was rattlesnakes, which we didn't see any, but we knew they were in the area because she's seen them in similar areas before. We did see centipedes and scorpions, though. In fact, one was about 2 inches away from my foot, and I'm just wearing sandals. And so then, the thought occurred to our head, what if we get bit by something poisonous while we're here? Because the tour company gave us an emergency number to call in case, things took a turn for the worse, which they did. And we tried calling it in 3 different areas, and there wasn't service anywhere. So even if we had to call 911, good luck. So we were like, well, this is kind of a survival situation now. And so there wasn't even enough room to set up our tent. We couldn't have even cleared an area to set up our little 2-person tent. So we had these little chairs with us, and we set them up across from each other, and then rested our feet across from each other so that we were, somewhat off of the ground, away from all the poisonous things crawling around. And we're like, well, I guess this is where we're stuck until daylight. And at about 2 in the morning, a full moon had risen, and we could see pretty well, and the wind had stopped, and we weren't sleeping at all. We were too alert for that. We're like, if we fall asleep, we're gonna get bit by something. So we were like, well, let's get on the water in dark and try to make it back to the truck, because that just sounded, so much better than where we were. We were just so uncomfortable and concerned. And so we did. We got back on the water, made the 1.5 miles in the middle of the night, and looking back on it, even though it was only like a week or so ago, it was actually a really cool experience. But in the moment, you're like just so uncertain about how things could play out. We were thinking, what if we get back on the water and the wind picks up and it becomes dangerous again, and it's dark, and we're trying to find a little beach to get off to, and it could have been really dangerous, but we took the risk and it paid off. We got back to the truck, and at that point there was just so much adrenaline through my system that I was like, well, it's a 2-hour drive home, I'm ready to do it. Going back home to the bed sounded very nice, and it was. And so I think that was my scariest experience, being stranded up to date, because I just didn't have any experience on the water. I was just so far in my element, and I didn't have any skill, and so it just, it got the best of me. Whoa, what was that? Did you hear that? I don't think that was it. Oh no! Whoa! Oh goodness, it was just a dream. It was just a dream. Okay. We need to go downstairs, get a drink of water, chill out for a second. That was quite a nightmare. Oh man. Official Ocean Outfits. Now that's a pretty good name. You did good on this one, Giants. I'll give you that. We went in here and got ourselves some new shoes. Hold on. Got just some new shoes for working, because on the construction site that we did in the last episode, well, all the other guys were making fun of me for wearing my skate shoes. And I was like, haha, very funny guys. But it actually made me quite insecure, and so we look more the part now. But anyways, if you notice, our money is down a little bit. Well, we've been making some moves in the background. Well, first of all, I took a weekend off because that whole roller coaster project, we were doing 14-hour days, no weekends. And so I took some time to relax. And then, guess what I bought? We bought ourselves a little piece of land. So that's what we're going to check out right now. And then we had some other expenses, like rent. Had our first month of rent, $1,600 a month to rent that little house we're in. And then, groceries, things like that. So that all added up to just over $2,000. But this is our little property or piece of land now. The property line goes from the road to the train tracks over there, or that fence anyways, and from the wall at Eddie's shop to the little fence over here. That is the Silverrun Market. And as of now, can't really do much with it because it's kind of got hills on it and it's got trees and vegetation. So that's what we're going to be working on today, and the cost of this was $55,000, which, you know, it's kind of a little bit steep for not a huge lot of land, but it's right in the center of town and right next to the roller coaster, and, you know, it's kind of just a valuable area to be in. Not that people go into a roller coaster and be like, hey, I need a contractor hired. Maybe they will, but probably not. So let's get to work on this. We got a skid steer rented for the day from Eddie's with a couple attachments. I've got a chainsaw, and then we're just gonna have to haul up everything in our little pickup truck here. So that's gonna be a bit repetitive, but we'll make it work. Well, we did it. We got the lot cleared, and now we have a little piece of property that we can use. I had to hire out Mr. Dump Truck over here because there was a little bit too much dirt to just level out, so some of it had to be hauled off, so that did cost us a little bit. Not too bad though. All that's left to do now is take this load of logs, this last load of logs, to the sawmill. Those boys over there work pretty hard, so they ain't gonna be closed. I don't know if I mentioned earlier or not, but we took out a loan for this little piece of property and put a $10,000 down payment on it. So we got $40,000 left to pay. What else was I going to talk about? I had something else. I was going to explain, why I thought buying a piece of property would be a good move for the business. And the next thing that we need to start building within this business is acquiring our own equipment. But on the tiny little lot that I'm renting for a house, we can't store anything on that, or park anything on it, or fix it, or do anything really. And so that's why I figured buying a little piece of land would be a good move for the business. So hopefully one day we can get a little shop built there, maybe an office set up, and that'll be our place to operate out of for a while. But we're just gonna have Mr. Dude over here running this, unload this last little bit of logs, and we'll see how much we get from them. About unstrap it all. Alright, $2,500. That's not bad. I don't know if that really puts us at a profit for the day, but it doesn't really put us in the hole. So I'd say that's good for today. Thanks for watching.